Good afternoon. My name is Amber Hikes, and I am the Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of LGBT Affairs for the City of Philadelphia. 2 weeks ago, we celebrated the beginning of Pride Month with the raising of the More Color, More Pride flag, whose black and brown stripes symbolize a continued commitment to visibility and intersectionality within our community. Today signifies another step towards full inclusion for all Philadelphia's residents. With this signing today, we continue our celebration of Pride as we witness our local government's commitment to better representing its residents. Those who have fought long and hard for the right to marry those they love and be the people they are should have their partnerships and their identities recognized by the laws of their city. Eradicating the use of gendered language in city code sets an essential standard in our judicial system's ability to support all genders, sexual orientations, and relationships. Using non-gender terms such as spouse instead of husband or wife is a simple solution to a serious problem, and it shows our respect for the marriages and identities of LGBTQ Philadelphians. As we celebrate the rights of all residents to love and marry who they choose, it is vital that we continue examining our city code to erase any residual inequalities or opportunities for discrimination. We all deserve to have our unions welcomed in this beautiful city, regardless of who we love and how we identify. Reforming our language reaffirms that Philadelphia is invested in recognizing and celebrating our varied identities. Bills such as these remind us of the tremendous progress we've made, as well as how far we have yet to go. City Council's unanimous vote on this bill is a signal to all. Change is here, progress will not be stopped, and greater inclusion and diversity are the future of this city. The Office of LGBT Affairs wholeheartedly supports these bills and any measures to affirm and accept LGBTQ individuals, specifically those who are non-binary and transgender. Thank you to Councilmember Derek Green for your leadership on this issue, as well as Mayor Kinney and members of City Council for your continued support of Philadelphia's LGBTQ community. It's now my honor to introduce Rue Landau, the Executive Director of the Philadelphia Commission on Human Relations.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Amber. Wonderful working with Amber and the Office of LGBT Affairs on all of these projects. I want to give a special thank you to Councilmember Green, the rest of City Council, for their efforts to pass these bills and their continued effort to introduce legislation that includes and protects members of the LGBTQ community. Also want to thank the mayor for his leadership spanning decades now on all of these issues, especially during this time when we are under attack through the federal government. These bills designate gender-neutral language in 2 areas of the city code, which will result in the change of city forms. And these changes make exclusive language inclusive. It affirms that the city of Philadelphia recognizes all of us, no matter who we are, how we identify with our gender, or who we are married to. These bills are a continuation of work that Philly has been doing for years and that has set us apart from other jurisdictions who are still trying to catch up to us, especially post-same-sex marriage. We've been trailblazers for equality in Philadelphia, and we will always need to, although we always need to check ourselves to make sure that we haven't left anything behind as we move forward. Just a little history lesson for you on where we came to from here is that we passed life partnership when the mayor was in City Council in 1998. And at that time, after we passed life partnership bills, we were sued. The lawsuits went on until 2003 when we got a Pennsylvania Supreme Court decision. That decision affirmed all of the areas where the city wanted to include life partnerships, except in the realty transfer tax section, where they said you were creating a new area of tax law, and you're not allowed to do that based on the uniformity clause of Pennsylvania law. So in 2008, in order to fix that problem, City Council passed an ordinance protecting financially interdependent people and giving them an exclusion from the real estate transfer tax. The financially interdependent people were life partners, an aunt and a nephew, and all sorts of other couples who didn't fit into areas such as marriage or biological parent to child, things like that. And it's been highly successful and has been, the financially interdependent provision has been used with lawyers throughout the city who are trying to make sure that people can then maintain their homes and also pass their homes to others before they die. Also, in 2013, then Mayor Kenny passed the trailblazing LGBT equality bill that did so many wonderful things for the LGBT community, especially adding some new provisions, including adding gender-neutral language on all new city forms. Marriage, as you know, same-sex marriage was finally passed in Pennsylvania in May of 2014. And as we've moved along and we've looked back onto the code, we've seen that there are places that we need to change things and areas that we need to move along. We had this catch-all phrase of financially interdependent people in the realty transfer tax, but now is the time that we look back and realize the words husband and wife were still in the area that should be protecting spouses. So these bills, unanimously passed, are wonderful changes to the code that add the affirmations and the inclusions that what we do in Philadelphia and what we need to continue doing. So we are continually changing and continually trying to check our work and making sure that we're following through to make sure that all of our laws are as inclusive as possible. Now I have the distinct honor of introducing Council Member Derek Green, who is a friend and ally, always on the forefront of issues protecting our LGBTQ community. My former law school colleague and kick-butt advocate, Derek Green. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's a true pleasure to be here for this bill signing. I want to thank Amber for all the leadership that you've done in your brief tenure as head of the Mayor's Office of LGBT Affairs. This is June, which is Pride Month, and if you just look at all the activities that we're doing in the city of Philadelphia, it's a real testament to Amber and Evan and all of the advocates in the community really pushing forward all the activities to really designate Pride in the city of Philadelphia. My friend Lou Landau, who reminded me how more seasoned I am now, that we went to law school back in some years ago, but she does a great job, Commission on Human Relations and the advocacy that she does for all people here in the city of Philadelphia. And it's just important that we have a city that embraces diversity regardless of your gender expression, your identification, how you express who you love, and we continue to push forward that type of language in our city code to make sure that all people are represented the way they should be represented, the way they want to identify themselves. About 30 years ago, City Council first initially recognized Pride by resolution in City Council, and we've taken a lot of leadership in those regards over the years. When I think of council members like the late council member John Anderson, Councilman Angel Ortiz, my boss, former boss, Councilman Marion Tasker, were real leaders in pushing for equality here in the city of Philadelphia. And if I thought about these two pieces of legislation, it was somewhat natural. I can only think how I would feel if I saw in the code the word colored or Negro. And so we've moved so far as a city and as a society, and so it was a real pleasure and honor to introduce this legislation. I want to thank my colleagues for passing this legislation in a unanimous fashion. It just demonstrates that the City of Philadelphia and City Council is really moving forward with leadership and being at the vanguard, not only for the Commonwealth, but throughout the nation, and trying to make sure that all people are treated with love and dignity. And so at this time, it gives me great pleasure to bring up our mayor, Mayor Jim Kenney, who was also a strong leader and advocate regarding these issues when he was a member of City Council, pushing forward these types of legislation, and I feel honored to be able to carry the baton that he started during his tenure in City Council.
Thank you very much, Derek, and I'm really pleased to be here today as we sign into law an important piece of legislation. What I'm about to sign will modify gender maritable signifiers used in the wording of the realty transfer tax and senior citizen low-income special tax provisions. The passage of these bills reaffirms Philadelphia's commitment to recognizing and protecting members of its LGBTQ community, whether it be on the city streets or inside the courthouses. The use of gendered language in such ordinances historically created barriers for members of the LGBTQ community whose partnership is not always properly reflected by the terms husband and wife. The inclusion of gender-neutral language will help to streamline these legal proceedings in addition to LGBTQ individuals' trust in the ability of the legal system to actually accommodate them. These changes continue to demonstrate Philadelphia's status as a city striving to ensure acceptance and equality for all its citizens, regardless of gender identity or sexual orientation. I really want to thank Councilman Green for his legislation, Rue Landau and Amber Hikes for championing this effort and bringing us closer to a more inclusive city government. And Councilman Green mentioned that Pride resolution back in the day, about 30 years ago or so. And these bills today are generally passing unanimously. That was a knockdown, drag-out, Donnybrook of a fight that went on for months just on a resolution recognizing Pride. So, I mean, we are certainly not where we want to be totally yet, but when I think back to those days of finger pointing and middle finger flipping and all the things that were going on the city council floor over this one pretty simple resolution, and I think about the things that we've done since then that have generally passed unanimously, it makes me feel really good about our city. So let's sign this into law. Got my good pen. Okay, we're done. Thank you.